The Complete History of World War II, 1939 to 1945. A world on the brink. Dark clouds gather over Europe. The sound of marching boots echoes through empty streets. A lonely church bell rings as the screen fades from black. Narrator. In the summer of 1939, the world stood at the edge of disaster. Only 21 years had passed since the end of the First World War. A conflict once called the war to end all wars. Yet peace had proved fragile. Across Europe, economic collapse, political instability, and growing hatred created the perfect conditions for another catastrophe. Germany had been defeated in 1918 and forced to accept the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. The nation lost territory, its military was drastically limited, and it faced enormous reparations. Many Germans believed they had been humiliated. As the Great Depression spread across the world in the 1930s, unemployment soared. Families struggled to survive. Hope faded, and extremist political movements gained support. One man promised to restore Germany's pride. His name was Adolf Hitler. Leading the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, Hitler promised jobs, military strength, and revenge against those he blamed for Germany's suffering. After becoming chancellor in 1933, he rapidly dismantled democracy and established a dictatorship. Political opponents were imprisoned. Independent newspapers were silenced. Jewish citizens and other targeted groups were stripped of their rights through discriminatory laws and increasing persecution. Meanwhile, Germany secretly rebuilt its armed forces in violation of international agreements. New tanks rolled off factory lines. Modern aircraft filled expanding airfields. Millions of soldiers were trained for a conflict many hoped would never come. Other nations watched with growing concern. Britain and France protested but were reluctant to fight another devastating war. Their leaders hoped negotiation could preserve peace. Instead, Germany became increasingly aggressive. In 1936, German troops marched into the Rhineland. In 1938, Germany annexed Austria. Later that year, Hitler demanded the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. European leaders met in Munich, believing concessions would prevent war. They were wrong. By March 1939, Germany occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia. It had become clear that Hitler's ambitions extended far beyond restoring Germany's borders. His next target was Poland. During the summer of 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union shocked the world by signing the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a non-aggression agreement that secretly divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. This agreement removed the greatest obstacle to a German invasion of Poland. The countdown to war had begun. At dawn on September 1, 1939, German forces crossed the Polish border from multiple directions. Thousands of artillery shells exploded across the frontier. Aircraft bombed military positions, railways, and cities. Fast-moving armored divisions pierced defensive lines using a new form of warfare that became known as blitzkrieg, lightning war. The Second World War had begun. Within 2 days, Britain and France declared war on Germany. What started as a regional conflict would soon spread across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. It would involve more than 60 countries. It would claim tens of millions of lives. And it would forever change the course of human history. This is the story of World War II. Chapter 2. The Fall of Poland and the Blitzkrieg across Europe. Opening scene. September 1, 1939. 4:45 a.m. The first rays of dawn barely touched the Polish countryside when the silence was shattered. The German battleship Schleswig-Holstein, anchored near the free city of Danzig, opened fire on the Polish military depot at Westerplatte. At the same time, thousands of German soldiers crossed the Polish frontier from the north, west, and south. Overhead, Formations of Luftwaffe aircraft roared across the sky, bombing bridges, railways, airfields, and military headquarters. Europe had entered a new age of warfare. This was blitzkrieg, lightning war. Unlike the slow trench warfare of World War I, blitzkrieg relied on speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. Dive bombers attacked defensive positions, tanks smashed through enemy lines, and motorized infantry followed closely behind, preventing defenders from regrouping. Within hours, Poland's communication network was collapsing. Telephone lines were destroyed. Railroads were cut. Entire military units became isolated before they could organize an effective defense. Polish soldiers fought with extraordinary courage. Cavalry brigades, infantry divisions, and artillery units resisted the invading forces despite being heavily outnumbered and outgunned. Contrary to a common myth, Polish cavalry did not charge German tanks with sabers. Instead, they fought primarily as highly mobile infantry, using horses for transport and dismounting before battle. In Warsaw, civilians hurried into shelters as bombs exploded across the capital. Families fled with whatever belongings they could carry, filling roads already crowded with military convoys. Children cried. Church bells rang. Columns of smoke rose into the autumn sky. Only 2 days after the invasion began, Britain and France declared war on Germany. The Second World War had officially begun. Yet despite their declarations, little immediate military action was taken in Western Europe. Poland would largely face the German assault alone. German armored divisions advanced at astonishing speed. Every breakthrough widened into another. Every defensive line eventually collapsed. The Luftwaffe dominated the skies, destroying bridges, supply depots, and retreating military columns. As Polish resistance stiffened around major cities, German commanders simply redirected their armored forces around strong points, trapping defenders behind rapidly moving fronts. Then, on September 17, another devastating blow struck Poland. The Soviet Union invaded from the east under the secret terms of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Caught between two invading powers, Poland's fate was sealed. Its government evacuated. Its armies became fragmented. Its cities fought on alone. Warsaw endured relentless bombing and artillery fire. Food supplies dwindled. Hospitals overflowed with wounded civilians. Despite overwhelming odds, the defenders continued resisting until September 28, when the capital finally surrendered after weeks of siege. By early October 1939, organized Polish resistance had ended. Poland was divided between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. For the Polish people, however, the struggle was far from over. Thousands escaped to Britain and France to continue fighting. Others joined one of Europe's largest underground resistance movements, risking execution to sabotage German occupation and gather intelligence for the Allies. While Poland suffered under occupation, Western Europe entered a strange period of uncertainty. For nearly 8 months, little major fighting occurred along the German-French frontier. Newspapers called it the phony war. Soldiers waited behind defensive fortifications. Governments prepared for a conflict that seemed strangely paused. The silence would not last. On April 9, 1940, Germany struck again. Its forces invaded Denmark and Norway in a daring combined air and sea operation. Denmark surrendered within hours. Norwegian resistance continued for weeks but eventually fell despite Allied support. The victories secured vital iron ore shipments from Sweden and gave Germany strategic control of the North Sea. Then came May 10, 1940. At dawn, German forces launched simultaneous attacks against Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France. The Allies expected the main attack across Belgium. Instead, Germany executed a daring gamble. Thousands of tanks moved through the Ardennes forest, a region many Allied commanders believed was impossible for large armored formations to cross. They were wrong. German engineers cleared obstacles. Pontoon bridges spanned rivers. Columns of tanks emerged from the forest faster than anyone expected. The French defensive line was broken. Within days, German armor raced toward the English Channel, trapping hundreds of thousands of British and French soldiers. The Allied armies faced destruction. Only one hope remained: Dunkirk. More than 330,000 Allied soldiers were evacuated across the English Channel in one of history's greatest rescue operations. Royal Navy warships, fishing boats, ferries, merchant ships, and hundreds of civilian vessels crossed dangerous waters under constant German air attack. Many believed Britain had lost an army. Instead, it had saved one. France, however, continued to collapse. German troops entered Paris on June 14, 1940. The City of Light fell almost without resistance. Days later, France signed an armistice. Western Europe had been conquered in less than 2 months. Across the continent, Nazi flags flew over captured capitals. Hitler stood at the height of his power. To many observers, Germany appeared unstoppable. But across the English Channel, one nation refused to surrender. Britain would stand alone. The next battle would not be fought on beaches or fields. It would be fought in the skies. And the outcome would determine whether Europe remained free. Chapter 3. The Battle of Britain. Hitler's first defeat. Opening scene. Summer 1940. The fall of France sent shockwaves around the world. In just 6 weeks, one of Europe's most powerful nations had collapsed. Nazi Germany now controlled most of Western Europe. Only one major power remained unconquered: Great Britain. Separated from the continent by the English Channel, Britain stood alone against Adolf Hitler's expanding empire. The German leader believed Britain would soon negotiate peace. When no agreement came, he prepared Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain. Before German troops could cross the Channel, however, one obstacle had to be removed: the Royal Air Force. On July 10, 1940, the Battle of Britain began. The German Luftwaffe, one of the world's most experienced air forces, launched attacks on shipping convoys, coastal radar stations, and RAF airfields. Hundreds of bombers crossed the Channel, escorted by Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters. Their mission was simple: destroy Britain's air defenses and clear the skies for invasion. The RAF was heavily outnumbered. Its pilots flew Hurricanes and Spitfires, scrambling into the air several times a day. Many were barely out of school. Some came from occupied countries such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and other Allied nations, determined to continue the fight against Nazi Germany. Britain possessed one crucial advantage. A network of radar stations along the coast detected incoming German formations long before they reached land. This allowed RAF commanders to send fighters only where they were needed most, conserving precious aircraft and experienced pilots. 4. Throughout August 1940, the air war intensified. Every day, waves of bombers crossed southern England. Dogfights erupted thousands of feet above farms, villages, and cities. Pilots fought at incredible speeds, often with only seconds to react. Aircraft spiraled toward the ground in flames as both sides suffered mounting losses. The Luftwaffe concentrated its attacks on RAF airfields, hangars, and aircraft factories. Britain came dangerously close to losing the battle. Then an unexpected event changed the course of history. After German bombs accidentally fell on London, the British launched retaliatory raids against Berlin. Enraged, Hitler ordered his air force to shift its focus from RAF bases to British cities. The new campaign became known as the Blitz. Night after night, London and other cities endured relentless bombing. Homes, factories, schools, and churches were destroyed. Families sheltered in underground stations while firefighters battled enormous blazes above them. Despite the devastation, the change in German strategy gave the RAF valuable time to repair damaged airfields, replace aircraft, and train new pilots. By September, German losses continued to rise. The Luftwaffe had failed to destroy Britain's fighter force. On September 15, 1940, one of the largest air battles of the campaign ended with heavy German losses. It became clear that gaining air superiority over Britain would be far more difficult than Hitler had expected. Days later, Operation Sea Lion was indefinitely postponed. The invasion never came. For the first time since the outbreak of the Second World War, Nazi Germany had been stopped. The Battle of Britain became Hitler's first major military defeat and proved that the seemingly unstoppable German war machine could be resisted. It marked a decisive turning point in the war, preserving Britain as a base from which the Allies would later launch the liberation of Europe. 4. Prime Minister Winston Churchill paid tribute to the RAF pilots with words that would echo through history. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The skies over Britain had been defended. The war, however, was far from over. Hitler now looked east, toward the vast lands of the Soviet Union, where he would launch the largest invasion in human history. Operation Barbarossa. Hitler invades the Soviet Union. On June 22, 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in history. Nearly 3 million German and Axis soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, crossed the Soviet border in a surprise attack stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. Hitler believed the Soviet Union would collapse within months. 6. At first, the invasion seemed unstoppable. German forces advanced rapidly, surrounding hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops. Cities such as Minsk and Smolensk fell, while civilians fled eastward as villages and farmland were engulfed by war. 4. The Soviet Union, however, refused to surrender. As it retreated, it destroyed railways, bridges, crops, and factories to deny supplies to the advancing Germans. Millions of civilians and entire industries were relocated east of the Ural Mountains, where production continued despite the invasion. 6. By autumn, German armies approached Moscow, but heavy rains turned roads into deep mud, slowing tanks and supply trucks. Soon afterward, one of the coldest winters in decades arrived. German troops, unprepared for the freezing temperatures, faced shortages of food, fuel, and winter clothing. Soviet forces launched a powerful counteroffensive, forcing the exhausted Germans to retreat from the outskirts of Moscow. Hitler's plan for a quick victory had failed. 6. Operation Barbarossa transformed World War II into a vast war of attrition on the Eastern Front. It became one of history's bloodiest campaigns, drawing Germany into a prolonged conflict it could not win. Hitler's greatest gamble had become the beginning of his eventual downfall. Pearl Harbor and Am. America's entry December 7, 1941. On a quiet Sunday morning, hundreds of Japanese aircraft launched a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet anchored at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Battleships were sunk or damaged, aircraft were destroyed on the ground, and more than 2,400 Americans were killed. The attack shocked the nation and transformed the course of World War II. 3. The strike was intended to cripple American naval power, giving Japan freedom to expand across the Pacific. Although the attack caused severe losses, the U.S. aircraft carriers were not in the harbor and escaped destruction, proving crucial in the months ahead. 5. On December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress, calling the attack a date which will live in infamy. Congress declared war on Japan with overwhelming support. Days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States, turning the conflict into a truly global war. Millions of Americans enlisted, factories shifted to wartime production, and the United States emerged as the arsenal of democracy, supplying weapons, ships, aircraft, and troops that would help the Allies achieve victory. 2. America's entry marked a decisive turning point. With its vast industrial strength and military resources now fully committed, the balance of power began to shift against the Axis powers, setting the stage for the long and difficult road to Allied victory. Pacific War. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan rapidly conquered Hong Kong, the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies, creating a vast empire across the Pacific. The Allies struggled to stop the Japanese advance. 6. The turning point came in June 1942 at the Battle of Midway, where the U.S. Navy sank 4 Japanese aircraft carriers while losing only one of its own. This decisive victory halted Japan's expansion and shifted the strategic initiative to the Allies. 4. The Allies then launched an island-hopping campaign, capturing key islands while bypassing heavily fortified Japanese bases. Fierce battles at Guadalcanal, Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa brought Allied forces ever closer to Japan, but at enormous cost and lives on both sides. 6. By 1945, Japan's navy was largely destroyed, its cities heavily bombed, and its supply lines cut. The Pacific War ended after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Japan's surrender on September 2, 1945, bringing World War II to a close. D-Day and liberation of Europe. Spiral Notepad answer. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion in history. More than 150,000 American, British, Canadian, and Allied troops landed on 5 Normandy beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword, supported by thousands of ships and aircraft. The invasion opened a long-awaited Western Front against Nazi Germany. 2. The fiercest fighting occurred at Omaha Beach, where heavy German defenses inflicted severe casualties. Despite intense resistance, Allied soldiers secured the beaches and established a foothold in France. Over the following weeks, reinforcements poured ashore as the Allies fought through the Normandy countryside. 6. By August 1944, Paris was liberated, and German forces began retreating toward their homeland. Hitler launched one final major counteroffensive during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, but the attack failed after fierce fighting. 4. In early 1945, Allied armies crossed the Rhine River and advanced deep into Germany while Soviet forces closed in from the east. Berlin fell in May, and Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, VE Day. D-Day marked the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe and the final collapse of Nazi Germany. Hiroshima, Nagasaki and AMP, Legacy. In August 1945, after years of devastating war in the Pacific, the United States dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima, August 6, and Nagasaki, August 9. The explosions instantly destroyed large parts of both cities, killing tens of thousands of people, while many more later died from burns, injuries, and radiation exposure. 3. The bombings, together with the Soviet Union's declaration of war against Japan, convinced Japanese leaders that further resistance was impossible. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's acceptance of the Allied surrender terms, and the formal surrender was signed aboard the USS Missouri on September 2, 1945, officially ending World War II. 5. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remains profound. The bombings ushered in the nuclear age, reshaped global politics, and fueled decades of nuclear arms competition during the Cold War. They also sparked continuing international debate over the military, political, and humanitarian implications of nuclear weapons. Today, Hiroshima and Nagasaki stand as enduring symbols of both the devastating consequences of war and the global pursuit of peace and nuclear disarmament.